Hi, I just wanted to give you a quick sense of the shows that I've got this week on my radio show, the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Sauga 960 AM. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online at www.sauga960am.ca, or you can get me on my podcast and videocast after the fact by going to my website, briancrombie.com, and putting in /podcast or /video. So Monday, I had a really fascinating show, I thought, with a guy who calls himself a toy coon, George Irwin, who is the CEO of Irwin Toys. He got approached by one of his previous toy manufacturers in China to produce masks, and it's launched a huge business for him. And he really talks not only about what he did, but more importantly about how he thinks businesses should be thinking about in this current environment, where they're not just waiting and hunkering down and waiting for everything to end, but to really take advantage of opportunities, reinvent themselves, satisfy needs that we've got in the community, but really help people. On Tuesday, it was the day of mourning for frontline workers that have lost their lives in whatever, but this year really people were recognizing the people that lost their lives in COVID-19, and I interviewed two different union leaders about the day of mourning, and a lot about what's going on in hospitals and long-term care and some of the challenges they're in. And one of the comments that really stuck with me is that after SARS, we had a Campbell Commission that they think was forgotten about, and a lot of the lessons that we learned weren't remembered, weren't applied. Tonight, Wednesday, I've got a fascinating conversation with Dr. Manal Nabulsi from Beirut, Lebanon. She is someone who I did a doctorate degree with. She's finished, I'm not, in business, and she runs a fairly large, successful coaching and consulting business in Beirut, Lebanon. And she talks a lot about what's going on in Beirut, Lebanon, which is interesting because they've really squashed the curve. But then in addition, she talks about how this time of isolation can be thought about as really a spiritual retreat, which I think is a fascinating review. On Thursday, I've got a gentleman that really is quite inspirational, Cesar Bajaras from Queens, New York. This man is a fascinating gentleman. He's been in the military. He went through some severe emotional trauma and problems, ended up going through some fairly traumatic changes in his life, and talks today about how he has been 10 years emotionally sober, and goes through some of the things that he credits with becoming emotionally sober. He also talks about the reality of life with COVID-19 in Queens, New York. And then on Friday, I've got Cara Vaccarino, who is the COO of EHN Canada, which is the largest private company in the mental health and addiction area. They run Bellwoods here in Toronto. And she talks about how addiction and mental health issues are very prevalent in this time of social isolation. She talks about how demands for her services are up fivefold. She talks about how sales at the LCBO are up substantially, how people are turning to alcohol and to drugs, and that is obviously a mistake. And she talks about a lot of the different services that people can reach out for to solve their problem. Anyway, so those are a quick rundown of my shows this week. I've also got a show online with Alec Vesna, CEO of Prepared Canada, talking about how bad it can be in second wave and some of the things that we need to be thinking about, and lots of other shows from past weeks that you can get on briancrombie.com, where I think I've interviewed some interesting people. I've had fun at least, and so hopefully you get a chance to listen in. Have a great night, everybody.